For this, we're doing the prompt engineering for generative AI tools. So it's about 40 to 45 minutes long. So let's get started. So for this agenda, we're going to do an introduction to generative AI and large language models. We're also going to do an intro to prompt engineering, the importance of effective prompts, components of a strong prompt, kind of how to craft precise prompts. We're going to also look at a couple of prompt examples. We're going to talk about the security and ethical concerns because, as we've seen as a trend since everybody has attended at least one of my trainings, you know that I have to go talk about this stuff. And then we're going to have a little Q&A. So generative AI and large language models are systems capable of generating content based on inputs and prompts, often utilizing deep learning techniques. So as we know, there's AI, there's machine learning, there's deep learning. So deep learning is the type of computer science that allows the technology to think like a human. A couple of the additions to this, so we have ChatGPT, we have DALL-E, which is also another OpenAI. We have Gemini's, which I still have to confirm whether or not Gemini is back on the market because I know it got pulled in February. Google also now has a AI tool in their Vlogger, which is for image to talking video. So you can actually submit an image and it will actually make the AI tool makes it into a talking video, which is actually pretty cool. There's Bing and Copilot for Microsoft, and we will probably be having Copilot for the web trainings in May and June. And then there's Claude. It's the process largest amounts of information, brainstorm ideas, and generate text and code. And I actually use Claude and ChatGPT for my example prompts. So what are the key aspects of generative AI and LLMs? So they're trained on large data sets to learn the distribution and structure of the data. So for large language models, they can learn from books, articles, websites, and other forms of written language. They generate new content. That's generative AI, it's in the name. So this involves producing coherent, relevant text based on a given prompt or query. They're also versatile. So it's not just text, it could be images, music, synthesizing speech, and even designing new molecules for drugs. So it's not just for text. It can be interactive. So you can interact with users in a conversational manner. So it can provide responses to queries, engage in dialogue, and adapt it to the user's style of communication. So it actually learns how you speak, and it will mirror how, and it will model back. However, there's ethical and societal implications. So it raises important ethical questions regarding the authenticity of content, copyright issues, and the potential for misuse, and the impact on jobs in creative industries. There are a lot of issues right now of copyright. New York Times I think they're actually potentially suing one of the AI tools for copyright issues, but there's also a lot of these indie artists that are saying like, oh, this was my stuff and now it's out there and now everybody can use it. So is my stuff still secure? Do I still own the copyright? So there's a lot of gray areas now being created because now there's a lot of AI artists out there as well. So prompt engineering is the practice of crafting inputs, queries, or instructions to elicit more accurate and desirable outputs. It's the instructions. Just like when we do with teaching, we have to provide instructions. And it's a crucial skill for working with artificial intelligence applications, helping developers achieve better results in language models. So what's really interesting about this is, one of the very few memories I have from elementary school is that we had an assignment where we had to, as the students, I think this was second grade, third grade, maybe, fourth grade, around that, with the assignment we had is we had to explain to an alien who has never been to the planet Earth before how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So the teacher sat there with bread, and we had her dictate, okay, so the teacher was the alien, and based on our directions, she literally created what we did. And we soon realized that, put the peanut butter on one side, put the jelly on the other side. So she put the jar of the peanut butter on one bread, the jar of the jelly on the other side. Here's your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So then we soon remember, I don't know why this is one of those deep-seated memories of mine, but I realized that it was like, oh no, you have to say, take the knife and dip it into the peanut butter, scoop out an amount and spread it onto the sandwich. That was a prompt engineering. It's a very basic one, but teaching somebody how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that has never had that concept before is very similar to prompt engineering with a generative AI. You want to provide them with as much detailed information as possible in order to get the best quality response. So there's the importance of effective prompts. So it's vital because the quality, like we were just discussing, of the AI's output heavily depends on the input of the prompt's quality. Garbage in, garbage out. That's essentially what it is. A well-crafted prompt can guide the model to generate high-quality relative content. If it's a really good prompt, you're going to get really good content. A poorly designed prompt may result in irrelevant or hallucinated outputs. So the components of a strong prompt, so we have 5 of them. So these are the 5 components that will make a very strong prompt. So you have persona. Declare who is speaking. Who as a instructional designer, as a faculty member, as a higher ed advisor. The objective. Define what you need from your AI tool. What are you looking for? The context is feed the AI a detailed backstory. So if there's a backstory on what you're interested in doing. Format, specify your desired output. What exactly are you looking for? And then there's the style, the tone, the rhetorical devices, the formality level. Is this a friendly response that you would like it to write? Does it need to be formal? Does it need to be assertive? And those are all things that you want to fit into the prompt. So for crafting precise prompts, you also want the efficiency and speed. So effective prompting can expedite problem solving, dramatically reducing the time and effort required to produce the useful result. So instead of fighting back and forth with the tool of being like, that's not quite necessarily what I want. Like, how am I getting this? If you have a precise prompt ready and you meet those 5 criterias, then it could be more efficient. You also want to think about scalability. So if you create a single well-crafted prompt, it can be adapted across various scenarios. So then that way, if you have an outline of essentially what you're kind of looking for, you can then plug and go, modify the outline that you have saved, and that can make it more scalable. It's also customized. So prompt engineering enables you to tailor AI's response to specific needs or user preferences. So then it actually provides a more customized experience. So that's when you have your main prompt, spits out the information, you'd be like, great, can you provide more information on this as this? So here are some prompt examples that meet most of the criteria that the 5 criteria. So the first one says, I need help writing a diplomatic and collaborative response. So now there's setting the stage, setting the tone to an email sent to me by the head of the department at a public university. The email I need help responding to is below, and then you enter the email. Obviously, you remove all of the descriptive or the names, and you make it anonymous, but this can help you write a response to an email, because sometimes we get emails. Well, I should speak for myself. Sometimes I get emails and I look at this email being like, I cannot respond to this the way that I would like to respond to this. So let's figure out a diplomatic and collaborative response that will say what I want to say, but does it in a better way. So that's one way that you could create a prompt. Another one says that I am writing a short bio for myself, which I hate writing bios, so I love this one, that will be published on the university website. take on the role of a copywriter who is going to help me brainstorm ways in which to improve my existing suggestions to add polish and make more dynamic. This is what I have so far. So you're talking about, so you are writing a short bio. It's going to be published on the website. Now you're saying the persona, take the role of a copywriter who is going to help me brainstorm the ways to improve it. Give me suggestions. Make it more dynamic. Here's what I have. So that meets the criteria for a good, effective prompt. Hi, ChatGPT, because as I live in a Google house, so my husband always tells me to be nice to the machines because when they take over, they'll remember that we said please and thank you to Google. So hi, ChatGPT, because hey, let's be friendly with them. I'm a professor of a 100 level college composition class, and my students are learning about subject-verb agreement. Can you generate 20 worksheet questions that require students to identify the correct verb form in a sentence? So this, once again, has those 5 personas. It knows what it wants you to do. You give the example of what you want. Here's another one. I'm a professor of a blank level course on subject. I'm redesigning an assignment and would like to include an improved rubric to students, because who loves to write rubrics? Not me. It is a 5-point activity, and each criteria should be evaluated on a yes or no basis. So you're setting the parameters, giving the context. Can you write 15 sample criteria for me that I might narrow down from to create a rubric? Here is the assignment prompt in its current form. So then you provide the prompt, and then it spits out the 15 samples that you can utilize to create your rubric. I like this because my rubrics all look the same. Like at one point in time, I was like, all right, I need help with my rubrics because I'm tired of writing the same things over and over again. I created some prompts, and I did, because we don't want to squint at a screen. So I actually did put over here what this says. So these are a few examples prompts that I did. I think I did them yesterday, just off the top of my head. So the prompt that I provided was, as an academic technologist, so there's my persona, can you provide a summary of academic articles between 2012 and 2020 that mentioned the use of AI in higher education, specifically identifying examples for technology-based learning fields? So it's like, all right, give me a list of things. And the ones that have popped up are ones that I've actually talked a lot about: adaptive learning systems, intelligent tutoring systems, learning analytics, chatbots and virtual assistants, automated grading and assessments, and personalized learning environments. So I just provided some examples of what was out on the literature. So this is ChatGPT. So I have it in dark mode. I haven't changed cloud into dark mode yet because I wanted to make sure we saw the distinguish. So this is a little bit of a bigger prompt. So I said, act as a digital literacy tutor. So there's my persona. And draw your inspiration from educational technology experts like Sal Khan and Monica Burns. So that's providing some context. I'm a university professor who teaches physics, another persona, and my goal is to learn about tools that enhance teaching and learning through the use of technology. I teach face-to-face, so I will need different strategies for this domain. I'm already comfortable with common tools like Canvas and Zoom. So you're already telling the backstory. Don't tell me Canvas and Zoom. I'm comfortable with them. What are some popular and useful free tools I can explore to develop content and assess my students more creatively? So it gives it 3 different things. So it goes content delivery, student assessment engagement, collaboration, and creativity. And it gave these examples: Khan Academy, PhET interactive simulations, TED-Ed, Socrative, Padlet, Kahoot, Mira, and Jamboard, and Flipgrid. So it provides these examples and it tells you how it can be used. And this could be a really good, interesting starting point for a faculty member that wants to integrate technology, because now they can actually go back and do the research themselves. And then they could go to the Center for Teaching and Learning or ATS and be like, hey, I did some research. I think these are the tools that I want to use. Can you help me incorporate them? Perfect. Let's go. Here's another Claude example. As a faculty member, I have 3 students who have informed me that they have dyslexia. Can you provide tips on how I can make sure my content in my undergraduate physics class course is accessible to the students? And so what this does is, obviously this is above and beyond what the Center Office of Disabilities has provided you with, like extended time or like, information, but this gives you opportunities to learn how to create an equitable learning opportunity for your students. So this list says provide materials in advance, use sans serif font, so that's Arial, Veranda, Calibri. Increase font size, so maybe having your font a little bit bigger rather than having it smaller. Use off-white or yellowish paper. Provide audio recordings. Break down complex concepts. Here's a spelling error. Use visual aids. Encourage the uses of assistive technology. Allow extra time, which that could be based on the Office of Disabilities recommendations of their accommodations, and also foster inclusive support environment. And what I really like about this list is that it provides a faculty member who may not be familiar with, having students that have dyslexia or a learning disability, but it also, all of this information and all of these ideas are great for students that have not been self-identified yet. So, providing materials in advance, providing audio recordings, the breakdown of complex concepts that can also help students that do not have dyslexia. So it creates an equitable learning opportunity, and the faculty member has some great tips and tricks that they can actually utilize to ensure that their content is accessible to the students. So here's number 4. So I'm a gardener and I am not gardening right now, and it makes me sad. But as a shade garden expert, provide tips and tricks for a garden filled with annuals and perennials. Include some flowers that will attract pollinators, as well as few flowers that are deer resistant. The flowers should be native to New York and have the ability to grow in Zone B. So it gave me these information. This was just also me kind of helping out a friend because she's a shade gardener. She has to have her own garden. And it tells you the tips and tricks of shade gardens, understand shade levels, soil preparation, layering, moisture management, fertilization. Tells you the flowers that attract pollinators, so columbine. So what's interesting about columbine is I'm pretty sure it needs to have sun. So that's when you have to start being like, okay, well, are you giving me shade? Because I said include some flowers that will attract pollinators. I did not explicitly say include flowers that will grow in shade. So that's one of those opportunities where this prompt may have not been as strong as it could have been in order to be a successful prompt. Because columbine, bleeding heart, and wild geranium, I'm pretty sure all need to have some sort of sun. So that's one of those opportunities where when I go back into ChatGPT, I can say, great, can you please provide some flowers that attract pollinators that will grow in shade. So you could be a little bit more specific with your follow-up questions. Once again, deer-resistant flowers. I don't have deers, but people have deers. Foxglove, it is a biannual, so it grows you get flowers every other year. Dead nettle, which is a ground covering. And then also hellebore. Actually never heard that, but it blooms in late winter to early spring. That would actually be a little bit interesting to me because I'm like, early winter to spring. You mean I could have flowers over the winter and not be sad all the winter? Awesome. And then it also talks about native perennials and annuals. Once again, aster is a sun plant, and Joe pie weed, never heard before, but now I have to Google it. It's probably also a sun plant. So you can see in this prompt that I needed to do a follow-up prompt. That didn't provide me with all the information. I need to do a follow-up prompt. One of the things that we want to be very mindful of is the information that we're putting into the AI tools. So we do have at New York Tech, we do have a data classification matrix, which is a really great tool to discuss what is public data, restricted data, as well as confidential data. So public data is press releases, course information, and research publications. So this is data that you could probably find elsewhere on the interwebs as well as Google and on our website. Then there's confidential data. So confidential data is data protected by the state or federal privacy regulations. So you can think about this as HIPAA and FERPA, as well as data protected by confidential agreements. So this is social security numbers, maybe home addresses, additional data information. And you never want to put this information into an AI tool because that allows a security risk and then allows other people's information to be sent elsewhere and used on the dark web. Restricted data is all institutional data that is not explicitly classified as confidential or public, but should be treated as restricted data. So this is the gray area of our data, right? So we want to take a step back and think about the purpose of utilizing this AI tool with this data. So this data we'll go through this a little bit further, but this data you may have to actually scrub of any identifying information as well as make it more anonymous in order for it to be used in a AI tool. Or you may want to not even include this type of data in an AI tool, even after removing all of the identifiers that you can. So there's a data privacy paradigm. So the ChatGPT and other our large language models are trained on data sets from the public data as well as user prompts. So the large language models learn from user interactions, which magnifying the risk of leaked information being used for nefarious reasons. So what you're putting into the tool is learning from. One of the core challenges posed by generative AI right now is unlike conventional applications, large language models have no delete button from the consumer side. The delete button comes from the application and the software developer side only. There's also no straightforward mechanism to unlearn specific information and no equivalent to deleting a row in your database's user table. So if you thought you cleaned and scrubbed your data, and then all of a sudden you see that you put people's username and passwords were in there, there's no way of saying, oh, just kidding, I want you to delete just those informations. So it's very important to be very mindful of what data that you're actually putting into these softwares, because we do not want to have any risk issues or any leaked information getting tied back to the use of this tool. One of the things that you can do is you can actually ask the software companies for a privacy statement or how do they use their tools. We'll give you some questions at the end to ask them. But this is an example of one that we received when I went to the software company and said, hey, talk to me about your data retention for your tool. And it says our AI, developed and maintained by OpenAI, so that is the tool that created ChatGPT, does not retain personal information from users' interactions. Perfect. It does not retain it. It's not being kept on a cloud server, on a actual server, or somebody's not writing it down and throwing it into a file cabinet. It also says that in line with privacy and data protection best practices, the information is provided during interactions is processed to generate responses and is not stored after the conversation ends. So once again, they're not retaining any personal information and they're not storing the conversation after it ends. Perfect. So we prioritize our user privacy, ensuring that conversations are confidential and not used for any purpose beyond providing immediate responses. Great. So now they're showing us that their tool is not learning from our conversations. And they say our commitment to privacy is reflected in adherence to strict data protection standards, including the compliance with relevant regulations such as the GDPR, which is the European Union privacy laws, and the CCPA, which is the California privacy laws, to safeguard user information effectively. So when I read this privacy statement, I see that they do not retain the information, personal information from user interactions. They do not store any information after the conversation ends. The conversations are confidential and not used for any purposes beyond providing immediate responses. So they're not selling the data, they're not training their system on the data. And they're also following the GDPR and CCPA regulations, which is great. So this tool sounds safe. So some key security risks that we want to make sure that we review is that there's the data retention and misuse component. So this is when personal information is shared in a chat, such as addresses or phone numbers, and it could be retained and potentially assessed and used inappropriately due to inefficient deletion policies. So if you have some personal information in there, you put it into the chat, into the AI tool, it may get reused in nefarious ways. There's also the proprietary information leakage. So if you're working on a project and you have working with a confidential information or proprietary code, you do not want to put those into an AI tool because that allows information to be leaked and could be exploited by a competitor to gain a market advantage, but it could also just be another security risk that we do not want to have in there. There's also the data privacy regulations. So we referenced two data privacy regulations in the previous slide with the European Union as well as California, but information shared with a large language model hosted in a different legal jurisdiction might inadvertently violate laws about international data transfer. So you also want to be mindful of where the tools are being stored and created. So how to use AI safely? So you want to be mindful of the personal information. So you don't want to have a lot of personal information out there. And you also want to understand the privacy settings. So that's discussing with and asking the software company exactly what the privacy settings are. You don't want to overshare. So this reminds me of when we first got Facebook and everybody was putting their first and last name, their maiden names, where they went to high school, what year did they graduate from high school, where are they checking in, where are they going, where are they going to college, where do they work? And we were just providing a lot of information on social media when it first started. And I feel like a lot of people are starting to scale that back. And that's really what we want with AI is you do not want to overshare. Anonymize what you can. You also want to think critically and you want to be mindful of understanding the tools that we're using and know that AI is not perfect. So it does still need that human touch and human capability. You want to report any inappropriate content. So if the AI tool is providing you with inappropriate content or some hallucinated responses, you want to report that to the software company because that can help them deter their tool and retrain their tool because there might be something wrong with it. You also want to be cautious of AI generated messages. So this is messages that you receive that you did not go above and beyond to ask it any questions. You should always be the one that's prompting AI to provide the response. AI should not be reaching out to you first. You also don't want to solely rely on AI. Like I said, AI is not perfect. It's created by humans. There's unconscious bias. There's blind spots in the data sets. There's always the issues with prompt engineering that you might not be getting the best prompt. You might be getting hallucinated answers. So you do not want to solely rely on AI. It could be a really great rough draft, but it should not be your final draft. And you also want to stay informed. So staying informed means taking trainings, learning about what is going on in your industry and your field with AI tools, and staying in the know. And that's something that the New York tech community, as well as ATS, is trying to do for you, is to ensure that you're staying informed and have these opportunities for professional and personal development, as well as fully understanding the tools that are available to you. So a couple more ways that you can secure your digital footprint is you can use anonymization techniques. So before submitting the text for grammar checking, you want to anonymize or alter names, locations, and identifiable details within the document. So you want to make sure that it does not know a lot of information about you, but it knows enough to be able to provide you a response. You want to use hypothetical scenarios or anonymize the content to avoid a context to avoid revealing specific strategies or technologies. You do not need to have a very specific example. You can actually use hypothetical scenarios as well. You want to understand and leverage the privacy policies. So this is where you want to review and understand the updates in the privacy policies of large language model providers. Ask the service provider about the data retention and deletion practices to assess the security of your data. So you saw that I did that with a sample privacy statement, but you want to make sure that you understand fully where your data is going. You can also seek secure alternatives. So for sensitive discussions, opt for platforms that offer end-to-end encryption to ensure that conversations remain confidential. There also are opportunities for you to examine the free version versus the paid version um, of a tool, because sometimes the paid version can provide more of a secure uh, encryption and secure alternate to the free version. So that's something that you may want to also examine is, okay, how do they secure my data? How am I secure with the free version of this tool versus the paid version of the tool? And if you're going to be using the tool a lot, you might as well go with the paid version to keep you safe. Speaking of keeping you safe, so New York Tech, we are trying to keep you safe. So we're currently developing and vetting a process for the use of AI tools. ATS does not currently support the AI functions of these tools, but once they have been vetted, we are here to help. One of the great examples of this is that there's a lot of Office 365 AI tools in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel that we are actually going to be doing trainings on. You want to use the tools at your own risk. So you want to anonymize your prompts when possible. Also, you want to use your personal email address to create the accounts if necessary for these tools. The reason being is your NYIT is actually a way to as a self-identifier, so that the tool actually knows that someone who works or goes to school at NYIT is using the tool. Whereas if you use your Gmail address, it's just another person using Gmail. And you also want to see how long the apps keep your info and what do they do with it. So there are some really great alternatives out there for the keeping you safe.